So, last time you were here, I gave you a clean bill of health. You had a mental breakdown over the color of the cars passing by my window, and then proceeded to sexually harass the receptionist on your way out. So, why in God's name are you back? Besides asking for the receptionist's number? Yes. Well, I heard you give out meth if I ask nicely. What do you think I am, a quack? That meth is for children. What possible reason could you have for needing an Adderall prescription? Well, the fact is, work's been really difficult. I spend all my time salvaging ships, and man, besides being backbreaking, the hours are insane, the pay is awful, and I need some chemical assistance to keep my focus. Otherwise, I won't make any money at all. Yes, abusing amphetamines will definitely improve your financial situation. Have you tried just looking for different work? Well, I'm actually in crippling debt to the company's store. Where do you work, the 1800s? No, the 2100s? Cobbler, do you often see or hear things that aren't there? If I say yes, will you prescribe something fun? When I was young, they wrote it in fiery letters. The world of the future, science, comfort, and new things for all. 80 years. The future becomes now. Do we fly rockets? No. We live in shacks, like our ancestors before us. There are two types of sci-fi. The first type leverages its fantastical setting and the fictional technologies contained within it to examine deeper themes and ideas it otherwise couldn't. These are ruminations on the human condition, or fatalistic and terrifying looks into the future we're building. The second type of sci-fi story is about big-breasted babes and strapping hunks, flying around and shooting gnarly alien baddies. This is sort of hyperbolic, but really these are classic adventure stories with space wallpaper. The technology is not truly necessary to the basic plot, the technology just elevates the stakes and scale of the story. Obviously, there's highbrow and lowbrow stuff in every genre, but sci-fi is notable in that there is a massive gulf between the two. So you can have books like Fahrenheit 451 sharing a shelf with Saving the Big Titty Aliens from Glorblaf 9 from the robot made of chainsaws. Another note on this fun dichotomy is that Mass Effect is somehow both.
We're bang, okay?
Also, the Expanse books are interesting because it sticks characters from the second type of sci-fi into first type sci-fi situations. So you end up with big-chinned space heroes being confronted with technology beyond their comprehension and having to grow to confront it, or be destroyed by it.
Where are all the chicks?
It also has this really good bit about the existential horror of incomprehensibly advanced technology. The proto-molecule killed humans, therefore it was a weapon. But radiation killed humans, and a medical x-ray machine wasn't intended as a weapon. Holden was starting to feel like they were all monkeys playing with a microwave. Push a button, a light comes on inside, so it's a light. Push a different button and stick your hand inside, it burns you, so it's a weapon. Learn to open and close the door, it's a place to hide things. Never grasping what it actually did, and maybe not even having the framework necessary to figure it out. No monkey ever reheated a frozen burrito. The only two stories which have made me cry, without killing a dog, like a fucking psychopath, are sci-fi of the first variety. In Slaughterhouse-5, the Tralfamadorians' cold acknowledgement that their ability to see all of time does not mean they are capable of stopping war is a reflection of the fact that war is bad is a universal truth that everyone acknowledges, and yet we can't seem to stop doing them. The first step is admitting you have a problem. So it's not war is bad, it's war is bad, but they had it coming. And in The Rocket by Ray Bradbury, the protagonist, despite living in an incredible future of rocket travel, is completely locked out of it by the poverty he was born into. I literally cannot read that short story in public. I will ugly cry. Read it. Then write your book report in the comments section. My videos have required reading. Hardspace Shipbreaker, on a surface level, is the kind of sci-fi I like. The sci-fi whose central theme is, you can put as much neon and rockets on shit as you want, but people don't change. This is a central point in both of these stories I just mentioned. Another of my myriad interests, which I put in my Tinder bio besides sad sci-fi and the fucking office, is the Gilded Age in American history. This was the period where technical innovation led to unprecedentedly horrible working conditions, monopolization of wealth by ghouls in top hats as opposed to nowadays where the robber barons don't even have style, and a bunch of very coffee children. Hardspace Shipbreaker is a sci-fi video game where you salvage old spaceships while shopping at a company store and suffering under crippling debt and the incompetent middle managers sent to bust your union you're trying to help form. As such, I like it. I don't have a choice, though. It's like if you made an anime visual novel where every romanceable NPC has never heard of The fucking Office before. I have to like it. It appeals to the depths of my very fucking soul. I knew I was going to make a video on this game the second I saw that spaceship break through all that low Earth orbit space garbage while accompanied by acoustic folksy guitar. That is an incredibly striking visual, trafficking in the exact kind of ideas I like to think and talk about. Anyway, the story is mid, and that's what I want to talk about. There are two main threads to the story, one of which centers around the employees' struggle to build a union, while the company sends in a middle manager to stop it by acting like a middle manager. All he does is deliver shitty motivational quotes and act like an idiot. Listen, there's a lot of history to union busting. The US government used to send in the National Guard to force miners to work. Of course, the government has thankfully stopped strong-arming unions into doing the bidding of corporate masters. There's a ton of history to draw from, so sending in Michael Scott to fuck, it makes the situation seem less serious than it is. Why is the company not sending in Pinkertons with laser guns? The second story thread revolves around the player trying to fix up an old space jalopy so they can leave the shipbreaking yard. The jalopy was sent to you by a different company higher up who is likable and folksy named Weaver. So naturally, Hardspace Shipbreaker has you and Weaver come into conflict as the player learns that while he may be nice, he is still management, and your interests are fundamentally at odds with one another. Just kidding, he's just a swell guy. He is your buddy. You fix up the space jalopy with small parts you can find during shipbreaking, which is a great way to reward the attentive, and it means I get to steal from my work, which makes me feel alive. The story, largely centering around exploitation by a greedy company in space, is a great idea, and it does have gameplay consequences. The fact that you start the game in crippling debt from the beginning is obviously pretty cool, and it helps me roleplay as someone that actually went to college. However, it makes money functionally meaningless. What's one more oxygen tank or toolkit at the company store? What's a little bit more debt? I'm already selling eyelashes for malt liquor money so I can forget my problems at this point. Money has no meaning in game. However, the game plays 5D chess by also paying you in dystopian sci-fi future funbucks, which are tokens the company gives you which you use to permanently upgrade your suit, jetpack, and various tools. So the consumable situation is sort of head-scratching in that the goal of the game is, at the beginning, clearly not to pay off my cartoonish mountain of debt. It's just you barely scratch the surface of it. But the upgrade tree is largely satisfactory, and that it keeps me pressing the button that makes the treats come out of the Skinner box. Furthermore, when you die in the game, you die in the fiction of the game itself. When the game opens, you agree to have your DNA extracted, so the company just prints another you whenever you die, then charges you for it. Come get your existential horror, $10. Meditate upon commodification of the self, just $10. I like this idea, but the execution is weak, considering the aforementioned meaninglessness of money in the game. But at the end of the day, I'm not in it for the money. To quote a job recruiter for Amazon, yes, the pay is bad and the work is unsafe, but it's actually a very challenging and fun environment once you push the corpses out of the endless aisles and the labyrinthine nightmare warehouses in which you'll be working. The core experience of approaching a ship, reducing it to its component parts, and sorting those parts into their designated receptacles is very satisfying. I had an initial fear that the ships would just get bigger but not more complicated as the gameplay progressed, but that proved to be unfounded. As you play, you master traversal via your grapple gun, and ships increase not only in size but in complexity and danger allowing for a very gentle but still noticeable difficulty curve. Soon you will find yourself wrangling with nuclear reactors before they melt down, and setting fuel lines on fire in order to get access to the emergency fuel pump off switch. This is really smart design. Smart game design, not smart ship design, but my headcanon is that the ship's engineer was sexually aroused by OSHA violations. The visual language of the game is sharp. A cut point stands out from the murky depths of the ships. The more valuable internals are clearly differentiated from the aluminum which comprises the skeleton of the ship. The unpainted aluminum skeleton is easy to differentiate from the polycarbon panels which constitute the outer shell of the ship. And the more dangerous materials, coolant, fuel, and radioactive materials, are painted in the bright warning colors poisonous animals in nature and poisonous women on Tinder paint themselves with. And unlike those poisonous women, the game has good music, and possibly even a good relationship with its father. My initial exposure to the game was, in fact, a recommended YouTube video, Hardspace Shipbreaker, Americana Beats to Chill To. The entire soundtrack is great. Shipbreaking generally, being a laid-back experience, may make you want to put on a podcast or something like a podcast, but the in-game music generally kept me from doing so. The core moment-to-moment experience is great, and you should absolutely not leave this video thinking this is not a good game.
Hello, Shipbreaker. You have one incoming transmission waiting.
But every time a character comes on the radio, the writing lets me down a little more, and there is a severe lack of stakes from both a gameplay and story perspective. That second story thread about assembling a little space jalopy so you can get out of there, after about 25 hours of playing the game, that was my priority, because I was basically done with the gameplay and I wanted to see how the story ended. So I played sloppily and would honestly not even finish salvaging ships. I would just take the ship, look for the small parts I needed, and then trash the damn thing. I was never punished for playing the game like that. This game, which is trying to communicate the feeling of being trapped in space by a futuristic megacorporation which controls your entire life, including whether or not you are allowed to die, does not punish the player for throwing away millions of dollars of company property over and over again. You don't have to buy these ships you salvage from the company itself. They are given to you freely as you reach milestones. But I guess you are punished for not doing your job because, of course, how else are you going to pay off all that debt? Do you know the saying? If you owe the bank $10,000, you have a problem. If you owe the bank $1 million, the bank has a problem. So many of the game's problems tie back into the fact that you will never pay off the debt that you start the game with. You should have started in a small amount of debt, but your constant need to replenish consumables at the company store and buy new ships to salvage should land you deeper and deeper into debt. The feeling of playing this game should be similar to the feeling of what it must have been like to be a worker back during the Gilded Age, which is to say, you're stuck in a hole, and you need to rent a shovel to dig your way out, but the guy renting you the shovel has industrial construction equipment he keeps using to push dirt back in. It should slowly dawn on the player that they're trapped. When you fuck up and trash the ship, you should be ruined. A slip of the hand should have doomed you, and the family, which this story desperately needs, to decades of wage slavery. The game fails to capture the desperation of the situation it has set up. And while seeing that amount of debt was a darkly funny way to start the game, it takes the wind out of the game's sails, rendering the gameplay enjoyable but inconsequential, and the story emotionally moot. There are good things in the story, to be clear. Later in the game, the asshole middle manager talks about how you can't organize because you're company property. You were literally made by the company. Also, your space jalopy gets taken custody of because, you did fix it up with parts you took from the ships. At this point in the story, Lou, the ringleader of the unionization effort, gets found out and disappears from the story. Naturally, your mind reels as you ponder what exactly this sinister corporation is doing to her, until you discover she's
fine. Life as Link's property sure isn't much of a life at all, but at least I'm home. It's been good to be back with my old man.
You thought you could win? You who attacked our bottom line? What hope could you have declaring war on the Lynx Corporation, which has mastered death itself? In the words of Julius Caesar, War gives the right to the conqueror to impose any condition they please upon the vanquished. So, we called your father, who's coming to pick you up. I hope you go home and think about what you've done, young lady. When all the workers decide to band together and purposefully destroy the ships, that's a great idea. You can't exactly strike within the confines of the gameplay without hitting Alt F4, so the game compelling you to blow shit up is not only fun and satisfying, it's a great way to have the player actively participate in the labor movement as it finally builds momentum. A great idea, executed poorly, again, because the moment where the workers decide on this course of action has the tone of a bunch of high schoolers planning their senior prank.
I don't know how much worse things could get. Unless Lynx wants to can all of us. And frankly, I could use the R&R. The only thing we have to worry about in the short...
Middle Manager Cobbler, the workers they're striking by destroying their ships. Should we fire them, or make them go to bed without dessert, or turn off their oxygen? What time is it? Turn off their oxygen? Well, also, it's 10:30? God, it's only 10:30? I'm so hungry. I'm gonna go for an early lunch. Don't tell my boss, or he'll turn off my oxygen. Hardspace Shipbreaker is a game where the player is told they are in crushing, isolating, and inescapable circumstances, and yet nothing matters. You are isolated in space, a debt slave to a monstrous corporation which literally won't let you die. Your coworkers are trying to form a union to save themselves from these truly dire circumstances, and the corporation sends a jerk, a shitty middle manager, and this weak sauce conflict makes a central theme of the game seem to be work sure sucks, am I right? There's one good thing in this story, with no asterisks, safe Punjabi, no virus, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention it, and that is, you wipe out your debt, not through work, but through progressing through the story as the Union negotiates a fair deal for the player and their peers. This imparts the message that working through your debt on the company's terms is harder and less fair than organizing and working through it on the workers' terms. I like that. That's smart. This story still edged me for 30 hours left and didn't call me in the morning, though. It was driving me crazy. What was it about this game that was driving me up the wall? I began to think I was just seeing things that weren't there. Was this game trying to actually say something? I ended up reading an article by the director of the game on Xbox's website. I was shocked to see that I had not just lost my mind again. They cite Vonnegut and Bradbury and The Gilded Age as sources of inspiration for the game. So they clearly wanted to make something I would love, and I wasn't just seeing things that weren't there. I don't want to shit on this game too hard, because it's a game whose heart is very much in the right place, but I think I figured it out. Did you guys know the leftists are winning? The leftist agenda is making your kids watch Drag Queen Story Hour, and it made the M&Ms unfuckable. They won't stop. They can't stop. Union membership, corporate taxes, all down, which is weird because supposedly the leftist agenda is winning. We live in a time where wealth inequality is now at a Gilded Age level again. A time the left is, demonstrably and objectively, collecting L's like someone that brought a Nintendo Switch to a party. The left isn't winning anything. Minimum wage is $7. Get a grip. What is winning is innocuous and inconsequential political statements largely made by massive corporations benefiting from this wealth gap, that are not intended to, and never will achieve, any degree of political and material change for the lives of people. The only thing the left can still do, but God do they do it, is trigger conservatives with lesbians.
It broke new ground!
Corporations co-opt this messaging because it doesn't threaten their ability to organize coups and do all their evil bullshit. Here's a good yardstick for this. If McDonald's would tweet it, it's not left-wing in any meaningful way. McDonald's is a monstrous, blood-stained burger sweatshop. Hardspace Shipbreaker is as political as a McDonald's tweet about black trans people. And what drives me up the wall about the game is that it has the appearance that it is actually leftist in a way that matters, that it would be a cautionary tale about how workers' rights can be further stripped away by technology, which is fitting, considering Elon Musk's Martian indentured servant plan. I was excited that a game was actually going to be leftist and political, and not just, gay people doing backflips or whatever the fuck. But it goes nowhere with the concept. Also, the media is who saves the workers in the end, and I just hate that shit on principle. Shipbreaker has a diverse cast of characters, and that awful goddamn land acknowledgement thing at the end, which I hate it so goddamn much. But this diverse cast of characters is never in danger at the hands of the company. They get sent home to their dad, or the company never sends in anyone to bust skulls. These characters are never at risk of anything real, so why would I care about their fight? This is a game about labor exploitation which fails to illustrate the exploitation in a way that feels grounded and backed by actual history. A way that doesn't feel like a joke. A way that doesn't have the tone of a Captain Planet episode, where the power of friendship defeats the evil businessman. The gritty sci-fi aesthetic tricks the player into thinking they're going to get a real reflection on how technology could be used to suppress workers' rights more than ever before. What rights can workers have when they can be cloned? What hope for better conditions could you fight for when you don't even own your body anymore? How could you organize if your peers can only be communicated with via channels owned by the company? These are great questions. Hardspace Shipbreaker asks them, but it doesn't answer them. Thanks for watching.